The sound echoes behind you on the empty street, each footstep matching your own rhythm with unsettling precision. Your heart pounds against your ribcage like a caged bird desperate to escape. Every muscle in your body coils tight, ready to spring into action. Your breathing becomes shallow, your senses hyper-alert. The street lights cast long, dancing shadows that seem to move with purpose. Your mind races through scenarios. Should you run? Should you turn around? Should you duck into that 24-hour diner across the street? This is the moment. This exact feeling. Your body is screaming that something is wrong, that danger lurks just behind your shoulder. Every fiber of your being is convinced that you are unsafe. But what if I told you something that might completely shift how you see this moment? What if this sensation, this overwhelming feeling of threat, isn't a sign of real danger at all? What if it's actually evidence of something far more profound? Your heightened perception cutting through the comfortable illusions that most people live wrapped in. What if you're not unsafe? You're just awake.
Ready for the next level of awareness? Thanks for being part of this journey so far. If you're finding value in this content, here's a quick favor that helps us keep creating. Hit that like button. It really helps us out. Subscribe if you haven't already. We don't want you to miss future videos that challenge your perceptions and expand your mind. Share this video with someone who might appreciate a fresh perspective. Your support means the world to us. We've been sold a lie about safety. Most people think safety is simple. It's the absence of danger. You're either safe or you're not. You're either in a secure location or you're exposed to threat. But this black and white thinking is exactly what keeps us trapped in cycles of anxiety and false security. Safety isn't a physical state. It's a psychological construct. Think about it. Right now, as you listen and watch this video, you could be sitting in what you consider a safe space. Your home, your office, a coffee shop. But even in this moment, your heart could be beating at 10,000 feet above the ground while commercial airplanes navigate through turbulence. The tectonic plates beneath your feet are constantly shifting. Solar flares could disrupt every electronic device around you. A microscopic virus could be replicating in someone's lungs 3 seats away. Yet you feel safe. Why? Because your mind has created intricate patterns of meaning that give you the illusion of control over an inherently uncontrollable world. Your brain categorizes experiences into safe and dangerous based not on objective reality, but on familiar patterns, social agreements, and statistical probabilities that help you function without constant paralyzing fear. Here's the thing. The moment you start seeing through these patterns, your nervous system doesn't know how to categorize the experience. You're no longer operating from the comforting illusion that the world is predictable and controllable. You're seeing the raw, unfiltered reality that uncertainty is the only constant. This is why people who begin to wake up to larger truths about society, relationships, or existence often experience what feels like chronic anxiety or hypervigilance. Their threat detection system is firing constantly, not because they're in more danger than before, but because they can no longer rely on the mental shortcuts that once made them feel secure. The false dichotomy between safe and in danger dissolves when you realize that true safety has never been about controlling external circumstances. It's about developing the internal capacity to navigate uncertainty with clarity rather than reactivity. But before we go deeper into how to do that, we need to understand just how pervasive this illusion of safety really is, and how entire civilizations have risen and fallen based on collective agreements about what constitutes security. The collective illusion of safety, when civilizations wake up. History is littered with the wreckage of civilizations that believed they had cracked the code of permanence.
The Romans, at the height of their empire, couldn't fathom a world without Roman roads, Roman law, and Roman order. Citizens went about their daily lives, visiting the bathhouses, attending gladiatorial games, conducting business in the forum, with an unshakable confidence that tomorrow would look remarkably like today. Then came the Visigoths. The invisible contract we never signed. Every society operates on what we might call an invisible contract, an unspoken agreement that if we follow the rules, pay our taxes, and keep our heads down, the system will protect us. This contract promises that planes won't fall from the sky, that banks won't suddenly disappear with our money, that the grocery stores will always have food, and that the lights will always turn on when we flip the switch. The Titanic's passengers held this contract too. They believed in the engineering, the safety protocols, the unsinkable promise. The wealthy first-class passengers sipped champagne in the Palm Court, confident that human ingenuity had conquered the ancient dangers of the sea. Even as the ship began to list, many refused to get into the lifeboats. Surely this was just a minor inconvenience, a temporary interruption to their voyage. When the unthinkable becomes inevitable. Consider the Maya civilization, with their sophisticated understanding of astronomy, their complex writing system, their magnificent cities carved from jungle stone. For centuries they built and expanded, creating trade networks that spanned continents. Their priests calculated eclipses with stunning accuracy. Their architects defied gravity with towering pyramids. They had every reason to believe their civilization was permanent. Yet by 900 CE, their great cities were being reclaimed by the jungle. The collapse wasn't sudden. It was a slow-motion catastrophe that unfolded over decades. Climate change, resource depletion, warfare, political fragmentation. The very complexity that had made them great became their weakness. The Easter Island civilization tells a similar story. The Rapa Nui people created those haunting Moai statues, nearly 900 of them, as symbols of their power and permanence. They organized their entire society around carving and moving these massive monuments. But in their focus on the symbolic, they lost sight of the practical. They deforested their island, depleted their resources, and by the time European explorers arrived in 1722, they found a population that had collapsed from an estimated 15,000 to fewer than 3,000 people. The media's double game. Modern media plays a peculiar double game with our sense of safety. On one hand, it feeds us a constant diet of catastrophe. Every plane crash, every terrorist attack, every natural disaster amplified and replayed until rare events feel inevitable. This keeps us glued to our screens, addicted to the adrenaline of vicarious danger. But simultaneously, media sells us the illusion of control. Buy this insurance, vote for this candidate, follow these health guidelines, and you'll be safe. The message is contradictory, but effective. The world is dangerous, but we have solutions. You should be afraid, but not too afraid. Concerned, but still consuming. This creates what psychologists call probability neglect. We become hyper-aware of dramatic but unlikely threats while remaining blind to the slow-moving, systemic vulnerabilities that pose the real risks. We fear shark attacks, but not heart disease. We worry about terrorists, but not antibiotic resistance. We prepare for home invasions, but not economic collapse. The comfort of collective delusion. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of the safety illusion is its collective nature. When everyone around you believes in the same basic assumptions about how the world works, those assumptions feel like facts rather than beliefs. The social pressure to maintain the illusion is enormous because acknowledging the fragility of our systems threatens everyone's peace of mind. In pre-revolutionary France, the aristocracy continued hosting elaborate parties at Versailles, even as bread riots erupted in Paris. They couldn't imagine a world where their privilege wasn't guaranteed by divine right. The very idea was literally unthinkable, until it wasn't. The 2008 financial crisis revealed how quickly the unthinkable can become reality. One day, people were confidently buying homes they couldn't afford with money that didn't exist, backed by institutions that were too big to fail. The next day, those same institutions were begging for government bailouts, and millions of ordinary people watched their retirement savings evaporate. What made the crisis so shocking wasn't just its scale, but how it revealed the arbitrary nature of the financial system itself. Money, it turned out, was largely a collective agreement to believe in numbers on computer screens. When that agreement wavered, the whole edifice trembled. The awakening. This isn't meant to induce panic or despair. Rather, it's an invitation to see clearly. When you recognize that safety has always been an illusion, not just now, but throughout human history, you stop wasting energy trying to achieve the impossible. Instead, you can focus on what's actually within your control, your response to uncertainty, your ability to adapt, your capacity to find meaning and connection even in unstable circumstances. The Maya didn't disappear entirely. Their descendants still live in the Yucatan, still speak Mayan languages, still carry forward traditions that survived the collapse of their great cities. They adapted, they endured, they found new ways to thrive. Perhaps that's the real lesson, not that we should be afraid, but that we should be awake, not that we should despair, but that we should prepare, not just materially, but psychologically and spiritually, for a world that has always been more uncertain than we dared to believe.
The first crack in the matrix. It usually starts with something small, a moment that doesn't fit the narrative you've been fed your entire life. Maybe you're scrolling through your phone, reading about a rare economic indicator that's actually been flashing red for months, but no major news outlet has mentioned it. Or perhaps you notice how the local newspaper ran the exact same story, word for word, as papers in 12 other cities. The same corporate messaging, distributed like a script. For Sarah, it was watching her grandmother's medication skyrocket from $40 to $400 a month overnight, with no change in the actual drug. When she asked the pharmacist why, he shrugged and said, "That's just how it works now." But it wasn't working for her grandmother, who began rationing pills designed to keep her alive. That's when the first crack appeared in Sarah's worldview. If the healthcare system could casually price her grandmother out of life-saving medication, what other assumptions about how things work might be wrong? The rabbit hole versus the spiral. Here's where many people make a crucial mistake. They confuse awareness with paranoia, clarity with conspiracy thinking. They see one crack and assume everything is fractured. They discover that one institution lied to them and conclude that all institutions are malevolent. They leap from, "Things aren't as stable as I thought they were," to, "Everything is controlled by shadowy forces." This is the difference between expanding your awareness and falling into paralyzing fear. Expanded awareness says, "The world is more complex and uncertain than I was taught. Many systems I trusted have significant flaws or conflicts of interest. I should think more critically and prepare for various possibilities." Paralyzing fear says, "Everything is a lie. Everyone is out to get me. There is no point in planning because the whole system will collapse tomorrow. Or maybe it's all been planned by people I can never fight." The person with expanded awareness notices that housing prices have become disconnected from local wages and starts adjusting their life plan accordingly. They might move to a more affordable area, develop additional income streams, or build stronger community connections.
The person trapped in paralyzing fear obsesses over housing market manipulation, spends hours researching which billionaires are buying up properties, and either does nothing because they control everything anyway, or makes dramatic, poorly planned moves based on fear rather than careful analysis. The paradox of perception. Here's the strange truth that catches most people off guard. The more clearly you see the instability of external systems, the more secure you can become internally. This seems counterintuitive, but it's actually liberating. When Marcus first realized that his corporate job, the one he'd been told was secure, could disappear at any moment due to automation, market shifts, or executive decisions made in boardrooms he'd never see, he felt terrified. His whole identity was built around being a stable, responsible employee. But as that fear settled into acceptance, something unexpected happened. He stopped living his life according to someone else's definition of security. He began developing skills outside his job. He strengthened relationships that existed beyond his professional network. He started saving, not for the retirement he'd been promised, but for the flexibility to navigate an uncertain future. Paradoxically, by accepting the instability of his external circumstances, he became more internally secure than he ever had been as a company man. The Goldilocks zone of awareness. The goal isn't to become hyper-vigilant about every possible threat, nor is it to remain blissfully ignorant. It's to find what we might call the Goldilocks zone of awareness. Not too little, not too much, but just right for your particular situation. This means understanding that economic systems have boom and bust cycles, but you don't need to predict the exact timing to prepare for volatility. Political systems can change rapidly, but obsessing over every poll and prediction will drive you crazy without improving your actual situation. Social systems are more fragile than they appear, but they're also more resilient than catastrophists claim. Environmental systems are under stress, but human beings have adapted to changing conditions throughout history. From observer to navigator. The shift from unconscious participation to aware navigation is like the difference between being a passenger on a ship you assume is unsinkable and being someone who knows how to read weather patterns, check the lifeboats, and swim if necessary. You're not constantly expecting disaster, but you're not shocked when storms arise. You enjoy calm seas without assuming they'll last forever. You make decisions based on a realistic assessment of conditions rather than on wishful thinking or catastrophic projections. This awareness doesn't make you pessimistic, it makes you practical. It doesn't make you paranoid, it makes you prepared. Most importantly, it doesn't make you passive, it makes you proactive in ways that actually matter. When you stop expecting external systems to provide ultimate security, you start building real security, skills, relationships, adaptability, and the kind of inner stability that doesn't depend on circumstances remaining unchanged. The irony is profound. By accepting that you're not ultimately safe in the way you thought, you become genuinely secure in ways you never imagined possible.
Distinguishing real signals from false alarms. Your body is an incredibly sophisticated early warning system, evolved over millions of years to detect genuine threats. But in our modern world, this same system can be triggered by information overload, caffeine, lack of sleep, or even the blue light from your phone. Learning to distinguish between real signals and false alarms is perhaps the most crucial skill for someone living with expanded awareness. Real signals tend to be specific, actionable, and connected to your immediate environment. Your gut tells you not to walk down a particular street at night. You feel uneasy about a financial decision because the numbers don't add up. You sense tension in a relationship that needs addressing. These feelings usually point toward concrete steps you can take.
False alarms are often vague, overwhelming, and disconnected from anything you can actually influence. The generalized anxiety that washes over you while reading about global economic instability, the panic that strikes when you think about climate change but have no specific action to take, the dread that comes from consuming too much negative news about things happening thousands of miles away. Maya learned this distinction the hard way. For months after her awakening, every morning brought a wave of anxiety as she checked the news. Her heart would race, reading about supply chain disruptions, political tensions, and economic indicators. She thought this was her intuition warning her about real dangers. But when she started keeping a simple journal, noting what triggered her anxiety and what, if anything, she could do about it, a pattern emerged. Her strongest anxiety responses came from abstract, large-scale problems she had no direct influence over. Her useful intuitive hits were much quieter, the subtle feeling that she should call her sister, who turned out to be struggling, the gentle nudge to check her car's emergency kit, which needed restocking, the sense that she should learn a practical skill, which led her to take a first aid course. Creating your internal ground. When external systems feel unstable, you need an internal foundation that doesn't depend on circumstances remaining unchanged. Think of this as creating a psychological root system. The deeper and more extensive it is, the more storms you can weather. Physical grounding is the foundation of everything else. Your body is the one thing that's always with you, the one constant in a changing world. When Maya feels overwhelmed by the scope of global instability, she has a simple routine. She stands barefoot on her kitchen floor, places one hand on her chest and one on her stomach, and takes 3 deep breaths while feeling the solid support beneath her feet. This isn't mystical, it's neurological. When your nervous system is activated by perceived threats, physical grounding sends signals to your brain that you're safe in this moment, in this body, in this space. Relational grounding means cultivating connections that exist independent of the systems you're questioning. Marcus discovered that his most stabilizing relationships weren't with people who shared his political views or professional interests, but with people who knew how to be present with uncertainty. His neighbor, who'd survived multiple economic crashes without losing her humor. His aunt, who'd raised 3 kids as a single mother and maintained an unshakable faith in human resilience. These relationships become anchor points, not because they provide certainty, but because they remind you that humans have always found ways to care for each other through uncertain times. The art of conscious breathing. When your mind is processing information about systemic instability, your breathing often becomes shallow and rapid without you noticing. This sends signals to your nervous system that you're in danger, which can spiral into the very anxiety you're trying to avoid. The 4-7-8 breath is deceptively simple but remarkably effective for interrupting the fight or flight response. Exhale completely through your mouth, close your mouth, and inhale through your nose for 4 counts. Hold your breath for 7 counts. Exhale through your mouth for 8 counts. The extended exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest response that counteracts fight or flight. Do this 3 times, and you'll often notice your thinking becoming clearer and your perspective expanding. Box breathing is another powerful tool. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, hold empty for 4 counts. This technique, used by Navy SEALs and emergency responders, helps maintain clarity under pressure. When Sarah feels overwhelmed reading about healthcare system problems, she uses box breathing to return to a state where she can think practically about her family's actual needs rather than spiraling into catastrophic scenarios. Building your internal sanctuary. Perhaps the most important tool is creating what we might call an internal sanctuary, a sense of safety that doesn't depend on external circumstances being controllable or predictable. This isn't about positive thinking or denial. It's about recognizing that regardless of what's happening in the larger world, You have agency in this moment, in your responses, in your choices. You have the ability to act from wisdom rather than react from fear. The 3 pillars practice helps build this sanctuary. What I can influence today. List 3 specific things within your direct control that you could act on today. Maybe it's having a meaningful conversation with someone you care about, learning something new, or taking a small step toward greater self-reliance. What I'm grateful for right now. Identify 3 things that are working in your life at this moment, not to minimize problems, but to maintain perspective. Your brain naturally focuses on threats and problems. Deliberately noting what's functional helps restore balance. What gives my life meaning? Connect with 3 sources of meaning that exist independent of external systems. Your relationships, your growth, your contribution to others, your creative expression, your spiritual practice, whatever feels most true to you. This isn't a one-time exercise, but a daily recalibration. Like physical exercise, it works through repetition, gradually building your capacity to maintain inner stability regardless of outer turbulence. The goal isn't to eliminate all anxiety about an uncertain world. Some vigilance is appropriate and useful. The goal is to ensure that your awareness serves you rather than paralyze you, that your sensitivity becomes a source of wisdom rather than overwhelm. When you can distinguish between signals worth heeding and noise worth ignoring, when you can breathe consciously through moments of activation, when you have an internal foundation that doesn't depend on external stability, then your expanded awareness becomes one of your greatest assets rather than a burden you carry.
The truth about your safety. So here we stand at the precipice of a profound realization. The safety you've been seeking was never actually missing. You weren't broken when you started questioning the systems around you. You weren't paranoid when you began seeing through the facades. You weren't losing your mind when the comfortable illusions started crumbling. You were waking up. The anxiety, the sleepless nights, the constant scanning for threats, these weren't symptoms of being unsafe. They were symptoms of seeing clearly for perhaps the first time. Your nervous system was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Alert you when something doesn't add up, when the stories don't match the reality, when the ground beneath your feet isn't as solid as you were told. But here's what changes everything. True safety has never been about the absence of threat. It's about the presence of clarity. When you can see clearly, you can respond rather than react. When you understand what's actually happening, you can make choices based on reality rather than propaganda. When you recognize that uncertainty has always been the only certainty, you can build a life that bends without breaking. The person you were before, the one who trusted blindly, who never questioned the narratives, who felt safe because they simply didn't know, they weren't actually safer. They were just less informed. They were living in a beautiful, fragile bubble that was always destined to pop. Now, you're living with your eyes open. Yes, it's uncomfortable sometimes. Yes, it requires more of you. But this awareness is not your curse. It's your superpower. It's what allows you to prepare instead of panic, to adapt instead of break, to thrive in uncertainty instead of merely survive in false security. Maya still has moments of overwhelm, but she no longer mistakes them for danger signals. Marcus still feels the weight of seeing systems as they really are, but he's learned to transform that weight into wisdom. Sarah still worries about her children's future, but her worry now fuels practical preparation rather than paralyzing fear. They've learned what you're learning, that the safety you seek isn't found in ignorance or denial. It's found in developing the capacity to navigate reality as it is, not as you wish it were. Your turn to choose.
So, what will you do with this awareness? Will you try to go back to sleep, to unsee what you've seen, to unknow what you know? Or will you embrace this clarity as the gift it actually is? The path forward isn't about choosing between awareness and peace. It's about finding peace through awareness. It's about building a life so grounded in truth, so rooted in genuine preparation and authentic connection, that external turbulence becomes manageable background noise rather than existential threat. I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share one insight from this exploration that resonated most deeply with you. What's one way you can transform your current anxiety into actionable awareness? What's one step you can take today to build genuine security rather than false comfort? Because here's the ultimate truth. You're not unsafe. You've never been unsafe. You're just finally awake enough to see the world as it really is, messy, uncertain, constantly changing, and absolutely workable when you show up with clarity instead of fear. Perhaps the real danger is believing that safety is outside of you.
And now, are you ready to dive deeper? 2 more videos are waiting for you. Click on one to continue your journey.